Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of Fan/Fiction with Andrew/Zach. I am Zach Dunsing.
And I am Andrew Gum.
And today, my love of James Cameron goes a little too far.
And we defile one of Steven Spielberg's many masterpieces. So if you have, a conscience, there may be some stuff that is morally objectionable in this episode, but just stick with it, because it would be weird to skip the first episode of a podcast. So
also weird that we chose a morally objectionable episode to be our first.
I'm going to go ahead and blame Zach for that one. You may notice that as a theme going forward, that Zach likes to bring the stuff that makes moms feel uncomfortable.
Well, it doesn't make your mom feel uncomfortable.
Nailed it.
Are you recording?
I sure am recording.
All right, well, here we are. We've been talking about it, but here we are.
We did it. We arrived. We pushed record. Yep.
This is the first episode. Welcome, everyone. This is Fan/Fiction with Andrew/Zach. I'm Zach Dunsing.
And I'm /Andrew. Gum is my last name. No relation to the musician /
Or the bubble gum.
Right. No, or the bubble gum. Though it would be nice to be heir to that empire. But I'm not. I'm a drama teacher in California, and I'm a friend of Zach's. We've written a bunch of stuff over time together. We've consistently worked in production and as writing partners on a number of endeavors.
And obviously, none of that worked out. So we both teach high school students and are starting a podcast.
Yeah, it's just a way for us to continue communicating with each other and just try to keep the inevitable darkness from closing in all around us.
Just trying to stay above the water, man.
Yeah, you and me both, buddy. And so the way that we decided to do that was because both of us have been writing lots of different things and, making things that we think are good together and separately. We've had a lot of conversations, just the two of us, about what is the purpose of fiction, basically, and storytelling. And
I believe the exact quote was, "What's the point, Andrew?"
Yeah, that was sort of what got us
Why?
Going. What's the point
of any
of this?
With ourselves?
yeah, that was what sort of started this. And so as an exploration of that greater question, we decided to have a pretty narrow focus, and we're going to focus on an area of fiction that neither one of us have any experience at all with, and that is fan fiction. The idea, at least for me, and Zach, please chime in and tell me if this is consistent with you too.
I was actually going to sit this one out.
Okay.
The rest of the podcast is on you, bud.
Great. Cool. I'm panicking. The idea for this is just that in fan fiction, you're using copyrighted material and you're writing an original story using that copyrighted material, which means that you have no hope for ever making any money. And so the people that are making fan fiction know that they're doing it for free and there's no monetary incentive. So we're hoping to sort of...
Yes, that's what's interesting about it to me is like the motivation of this is very interesting because you're stealing from multiple intellectual properties. I mean, you're not really stealing because every single one of these things has a disclaimer in front of it saying, I do not own these characters.
Right.
And like, why?
They make it anyway.
And they make it anyway because there's like this pure creative impulse just to see what these characters are going to do and like really just for them to live beyond the framing that you've seen them in already.
Yeah, and that's sort of what I'm interested, and I think we're both interested in, is what is the heart of that, other than just love for these characters, but that creative impulse to make something is so strong that you're willing to do it and you're driven to do it without any monetary incentive whatsoever. It seems like a pretty good place to make the exploration of why. Why do we do this? What is going on? As the grand question. We're going to explore lots of different things. We hope to, over the course of multiple episodes, get deeper and deeper into it and understand more about the culture and, have a lot of different samples, but we cannot guarantee
anyone's safety.
Yeah, exactly. Or what's gonna happen, what we're gonna uncover, because even with my most basic of explorations, I've found that there is a shitload of fan fiction.
Well, that was the other emphasis. Like we started talking about this idea, and then we both checked out fanfiction.net, which is just one of many of the aggregates of all this fan fiction, this like user generated fan fiction on the internet, and it's staggering. The amount
like
is
infinite.
Staggering. It is. There's exactly as many tabs for new fan fiction as there are just straight pornos in the world, like homemade pornos in the world.
I know.
And they're infinite.
Which, I mean, is a statement about porno too. Apparently we just can't not make porno, and we just can't not make fan fiction. That should be our next podcast. Why do we make pornos? Yeah. Well,
Hang on. We should probably just stop this podcast and start doing the porno podcast.
I think we would reach a different kind of audience.
Podhub.
Yeah. Oh, dude. That's great. That's really good. So, yeah.
But yeah, it's like, that's the thing. Sorry, just go back to this. Like, I immediately felt so overwhelmed.
Totally. I almost quit.
Yeah.
Because I got overwhelmed. Yeah, like what you said, the different tabs of just the different like kinds of stories, like the crossovers between different stories and just the different intellectual properties that the fan fiction is based on is longer than I thought I would find in all of the fan fiction I was looking for. It's just, anyway, we're harping
and just to give you a quick understanding of this, like on fanfiction.net, just the crossover stuff, not the fan fiction stuff, but this as well, like it's broken down by popularity, i.e. how many stories have been written about it. And like, Avengers, Star Wars, that stuff's kind of at the top. And Avengers alone, 63,000 plus stories.
Right. And that's just Avengers, not necessarily Avengers mixed with
63,000.
Yeah. I mean, how many comics are there in the Avengers, in the maybe 63,000?
Yeah, maybe 63,000. I don't know.
So it's pretty amazing.
Okay. But so basically we both just dove into this world. We pulled some treasures out and we're going to share them. I got kind of a cross section of the types of stuff that you come across in this world. What'd you come up with?
Well, I got three very different things that I wanted to share. That's why I wanted to go first.
Great.
Was because I was overwhelmed. I started down a lot of roads, but these are the ones that I think were interesting because they bring up a different, I think, reason why people are making the fan fiction, which is one of the things that I want to understand. So
it's one of the things that I definitely don't understand yet.
Right. Yeah. So I think that'll at least prompt some of that question of, where is this impulse coming from? And the first one, because I am a drama teacher, I looked up
drama queen as well.
Shakespeare fan. Yeah, that is true. My wife tells me the same thing, and I cry and cry.
Yep,
this one is called The Terrible Transformation by NelissaTL, and it is a Hamlet fanfiction. I was pretty excited about that. And then I was just confused. So
okay, what you got?
So here, we'll start it off, and you can tell me where you think this is going to end.
They all die.
No.
Okay, interesting.
No,
interesting.
It does not end there, which, I mean, I get why you'd think that.
There's a nice twist on one style of Shakespeare's plays.
Yeah. So it starts out with, I couldn't stay here. There was too much lies. My father died, and I'm sure that Claudius killed him. My mother did not want to see the truth. She was married to a murderer, and she didn't saw him as I do. He was a cunning coward. I had to go far away from him. I was sure he wanted to kill me, but I found a plan to put him down first. And you're like, okay. So Hamlet's got a plan to kill Claudius.
Great.
That sounds like Hamlet, right?
Yep.
So then Hamlet
except for the doing part, except for the making any decisions whatsoever part.
Yeah, that's not really Hamlet's style.
It's not Hamlet's deal.
It's a lot of, just self-flagellation.
Yeah.
Instead, he goes and gets on his horse Talisman, which, in fairness, may be a reference to something that I don't understand, but it does mention that his horse's name is Talisman over and over.
I'm sorry. I thought you were referring to a horse talisman, not his horse named Talisman.
Horse named Talisman. Though a talisman may be involved because something very magical happens next.
Okay.
Without any discernible explanation.
Great.
So he goes down, he gets on Talisman, and he starts riding away. And suddenly he feels a light pierce his chest. And he feels an intense pain in his chest. And he's running away, and he can feel that there's a transformation happening to him.
Mm-hmm.
And can you get... Because remember, he's setting out to kill Claudius first, right? He's got a plan.
So what do I think?
Yeah, what's the transformation?
Does he turn into a werewolf?
No. He turns into a woman.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So he turns into a woman, and then I'll just tell you
Wait,
how...
but wasn't... Never mind. Sorry, go ahead. I was trying to make a Globe Theater, like
that all the women are played by men, and so then he actually is a woman. Yeah, there's something in there.
There's something there, but it didn't work, yeah.
I could not find it either. So, this is how it ends. I finally stopped my rush, but I was still in the town, and a seller grabbed my shoulder, and at this precise moment, I saw my reflection in the shop window. I was indeed transformed in a woman. I'm sure that means like into a woman.
I don't know. I've been transformed in women before.
Yeah, I've been transformed in a woman too. Into a man, if you know what I'm saying.
There it is.
Oh, jeez. I'm sorry. Anyway, and then it ends, and he does not go and get Claudius first, which left me feeling like this is about 800 words, and I think this is just a story where somebody wanted a story to exist where Hamlet turns into a woman, and that's all. They as soon as that happened, they were satisfied, and they just were able to set down the story.
They set out to rewrite Hamlet, and then as soon as Hamlet turned into a woman, they were like, "Oh, I think maybe that's all I was going for. I think I'm done. I'm complete.
Yeah.
My work is done here."
Yeah, we're set. We're all set here. Which
interesting.
Which is very interesting, and gives me, that's my first little insight into it.
Yeah.
So sometimes you might just have an idea, and you just want a story with that to exist.
Yes, yeah, and I've noticed that there has been. I've come across a number of sort of. I don't know what there is, probably a more proper term for it, but just like sort of gender role play with characters or sort of gender swapping with characters.
Yeah, I've
come across a few things like that.
I'm interested. Maybe there's just not a lot of stories about that, and so maybe somebody wanted, just to tell a story about that, just a gender swap for Hamlet. And
yeah, I mean, if you're gonna do it, you might as well use one of the most recognizable characters of all time.
Totally. And
why not?
So there you go. You got Hamlet turns into a woman,
okay.
And then the story just stops on a dime. Well, stops on Talisman, the horse, but he stops on a dime. I did not mean to assume Talisman's gender either. It does not specify.
That's
the second
a
one
good point. What's your next story?
Is called My Morty by Dead Man's Toe.
Great.
And this is a Rick and Morty fanfic, and I'm a big fan of Rick and Morty.
Yeah, me too. I'm actually surprised that I didn't naturally come across any of that. I would assume that was pretty prevalent, but
there's a fair amount.
I wasn't
of it.
looking for it, so I don't know.
Yeah, well, you can dive in as well. This one, I definitely understand the impulse behind this one, and it's actually quite sweet. And I will share with you what it is. So, if you're familiar at all with the show Rick and Morty, it's sort of roughly a parody of Doc and Marty from Back to the Future, where you've got the kind of crazy, white-haired genius inventor and his kind of bumbling adolescent, Marty that rolls around with him.
Except that they're both like flawed beyond recognition.
Yes. So that's sort of your basic starting point. But over the course of the show, one of the central points of tension in the entire show is Rick is such a genius that he is completely alone. Like he can't connect to anybody because he's literally not on the same wavelength as everybody. He's totally depressed, is a full-blown alcoholic.
And crystal calaxium user, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he's a total mess. And Morty goes on these adventures with him because he loves him, because he's his grandfather. But like Rick, clearly at multiple times, there are times when Morty is reaching out to get some affirmation that Rick actually cares about him, and Rick never gives it to him. Just
right,
like. It's like, no, love is stupid. It like attachments make you weak, and you're all idiots because you think you're in love, and it's really just hormones, you dummies.
For what's considered a comedic show, it has probably the most pitch black worldview of any show I've ever seen.
Me too.
What happens in your story?
Okay, so in this one, I'll read you the first line. I can't believe I have to come to this stupid place just to get some Cafadium crystals. Rick grumbled as he moved through the crowd of Ricks. In this world, they travel between dimensions, so there's an infinite number of Ricks, an infinite number of Mortys.
And dimensions.
Over the course of this story, Morty finds out that he was not Rick's original Morty. The first, like, from the same dimension. And Morty loves his grandfather, wants to matter to him, knows he doesn't, and basically, once he figures out that he's not the original Morty, that he'll just be replaced as soon as he dies, he decides he's going to end it all. So he goes to jump off a cliff, and Rick comes and stops him and says this. He says that his original Morty was an evil Morty and destroyed his entire dimension, and he was the only survivor. And
which, knowing Rick, was probably a lie, right?
I mean, it seems like it's a lie, but for the sake of this story,
too on the nose.
If it was in the show, it would definitely be a lie. But for this purpose, I think it is not a lie. And he says, after he destroyed my dimension, I fled to the only place that was safe for me, the Citadel, where all the Ricks and Mortys live. That's when the Citadel cloaked me and placed me with you, and from the moment I met you, I knew you were different. Those bright eyes looking up at me with wonder and curiosity, that special smile reserved just for me. Morty, it was only a couple of months before I knew I loved you. Morty wiped the tears from his face. You love me, he asked. Yes, Rick answered, and I always will. You're not just some Morty to me. You're my Morty, and that makes you the most special Morty in all the multiverse. Morty couldn't take it anymore. He broke down into an ugly sob. I'm sorry, he cried. Rick quickly walked forward and wrapped Morty in a hug. Shh, it's okay, he said, running his fingers through Morty's hair, which all seems very out of character if you know the show.
Yeah.
How about we get back in the spaceship and go home? I'd like that, Morty replied. And for the record, I love you too. And that's how it ends.
So that's the other thing that we see in a lot of these stories, like the other impulse that happens is like you want to subvert the tragedy of it all. You know, like sometimes you don't want Hamlet and all of his friends to die. You just want him to be a woman.
Yeah, you just want him to be a woman, not dead, woman.
And sometimes like you love a show so much, but you're tired of watching these two characters misconnect the whole time. You just want so much so that you want to create a world and a universe within that multiverse where Rick and Morty are fine, where they get along. And that's an interesting aspect of fandom. Another interesting aspect of fandom is when you want to take two characters who have been misconnecting or whatever, and you want to have them connect in such a way that they blow one another.
Yeah.
That happens a lot in this fan fiction.
Yeah, I'm nervous about diving deeper because I know I'm going to just dive head first into all my favorite characters' dicks.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And like those 63,000 Avengers stories, I guarantee you the characters have sex in 45,000 of those stories.
Yeah, I think that's a conservative estimate. Just for my browsing thus far.
Right. Just your browsing history.
Hey.
I pulled kind of a cross section of stories as well. I didn't pull any of the for lack of a better term, erotica.
Cool.
Because we are going to have to talk about it. I don't know if I'm ready to talk about it yet.
Yeah, I'm bracing myself.
But it's a lot of what is out there.
Yeah. I mean, to ignore it would be not looking this beast right in the mouth, and that's where we want to look, into this beast's mouth and every other orifice.
We got to look this thing square in the dick.
Yeah. I got one last one that I did not read, but I do want to mention because it's one last little piece of it that I connected with. This is Fire Burns and Ice Freezes by Invisible But There, which is a pretty cool username, Invisible But There.
Or a really depressing one.
Yeah, that too. That's true, but neat.
It sort of echoes some of the like emo undertones that a lot of these stories have. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. And I think that might get into this, but the reason I did not read this one in its entirety is because it is 97,000 words.
Jesus Christ.
I'm pretty sure that's just a novel.
That's just a novel at that point.
Yeah. So the reason I connected to this one, I'll read you a line and you can tell. So this is Avatar: The Last Airbender fan fiction, which I also really like, Avatar: The Last Airbender.
In my opinion, there's only one Avatar, and it's James Cameron's, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you like blue cat people. I like kids with blue tattoos on their forehead. Potato.
Tomato.
So here's where the connection point is, and then we'll move along. But
please.
Hi, my name is Kita. I'm the younger sister of Katara and Sokka, two main characters from the show. I can bend water like my sister, but I am better at ice. I was with them when they found Avatar Aang. I look different from the other people in the tribe. I have white hair, shockingly blue eyes, and I'm paler. This is the story of how we saved the world. Did I mention that I can bend fire and that it is as white as my hair?
Okay, what does that mean to me?
Okay, so basically, this is the story. So you got these two characters, brother and sister, who find the Avatar, and then they go on a bunch of, and that's how the show starts. They go on a bunch of adventures, and they save the world.
On Pandora.
Well,
on the gaseous moon Pandora.
No, in the different nations where there's the Fire Nation, the Earth Nation, the Water Nation, and the Air Temples, which the monks. Anyway, this author has written in a new character who is the sister of those two characters, and then that character just goes with them on all their adventures.
Okay, so the novel is about the new character, the sister, yes?
Yes. So is
it all of the adventures that take place in the show?
I'm pretty sure it is.
It's just like those adventures. It's like...
Yeah, it's those adventures with a new kid going around with them.
So it's just like a new character and a different perspective on those adventures?
I think so, yeah. It follows her perspective. But then it's just them going around on the adventures. And here's the place where I connected to.
What does she think about the Hallelujah Mountains?
God damn it, Zach. That is a different Avatar, and I do not like it as much. But
I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't want to belittle any of M. Night Shyamalan's work.
That's you, motherfucker. All right. Anyway, the way that I connected to this story was when I was a kid, whenever I'd read something like Redwall or whatever, or watch a cartoon show like the animated show The Gargoyles, I would always invent a character. Yeah, right? I know.
Macbeth is in that show.
I know.
Character Macbeth is in that show in 90s Brooklyn or Manhattan.
Yeah. That show is insane and everybody should watch it. But
agreed.
What I would do is I would come up with a character who exists in that world for me to play, who is like basically just me with superpowers or whatever, or as a gargoyle, or as one of the characters who can like bend water in the story. And then I would just imagine myself going on adventures with them. And I would like go cartwheel around in my yard pretending like I was going on adventures with these fictional characters that I loved. And it seems to me like somebody did that exact thing where they came up with their character, what they looked like, came up with their powers and stuff, and then literally wrote all those little imaginary adventures that I had for my whole childhood, but they put it into a 97,000 word tome.
When was this written?
Adventures. That's a great question. This was written on October 1st, 2017.
2017? That seems a little late, right?
Yeah, the show had been over for a really long time. They had like the whole Legend of Korra after that.
Huh.
So, but here's what maybe happened.
It took them a really long time to put 97,000 words into a story.
Yeah, I bet.
Like a few years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what happened.
Yeah, I bet that's exactly what happened. So that's probably just the most recent portion of this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, that would make sense. But
yeah, is it broken up into chapters or anything?
Yes. It is broken into many chapters.
Right.
31 chapters. It is 31 chapters.
Okay.
But yeah, I read that one and was like, this I totally get. Like, this is exactly what I did and still, to a certain degree, do when I think about a fictional world that I really love.
Wait.
I immediately, what
do you mean?
I don't as much think of like myself as a character, but I do think of like what are interesting characters that could exist in that world? What are avenues of this story that I found really engaging that I would want to see more of?
Do you think that this person just wrote themselves into the Avatar stories?
Maybe. I mean, depending on who the author is. I mean, I didn't read enough of it to really get the vibe, but it's possible that this is just like a young blonde girl who has like white blonde hair or would like to have white blonde hair and is writing this avatar
to have
of
blue
themselves.
skin and
God damn it, I had a good Avatar joke and god damn it. Wrote an avatar of themselves into Avatar. So I felt good about that.
Yeah, that was good. I'm really glad I subverted it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so that was a good one. I've got, I just grabbed like 3 kind of random ones to sort of give like a core sample of what is the tapestry of this shit we've been coming across, right? Because it's like it is all over the place, but I feel like there's a few different types that we come across.
Right.
Okay, so the first one is it's crossover because you tend to go more for the fan fiction. I tend to go more I think like the crossover more because it's like more absurd.
That you're super interested in the crossover stuff, which is 2 different worlds, like 2 different fictional worlds crossing over.
These are all one shots, so they're all just one independent standalone short story. So the first one I got is the type of story where you take 2 extremely plausible universes and combine them, like 2 characters that really seemingly exist in the same universe anyways. So this is Indiana Jones and the Rocketeer.
Oh, that is a very good crossover.
Yes, because
that feels right together.
Well, okay, so this is what's interesting about this is that they coexist in the same time frame anyways, but this also has the added substance of the connective tissue of Joe Johnston, who directed The Rocketeer and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and Captain America. He worked on the Indiana Jones movies. So he was
that's interesting.
Yeah, he did art direction for them, and early on he did like storyboarding for the Star Wars movies and art direction for them. And he did a bunch of stuff like that. So he's worked on a bunch of Spielberg's movies. He's worked on Lucas's movies. He's in the like Spielberg, Lucas, Coppola camp.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, then even more so that their universes already touch in a way. So then you put those 2 together. It feels cohesive.
So so it's pretty straightforward. It's like, the Rocketeer goes and is hired or like joins the OSS, and this is during World War I, and they send him overseas to pick up an operative of theirs.
Indiana Jones,
of course. So,
yeah.
And then, so like you meet the Rocketeer when he's like meeting his commanding officer who's giving him his orders, and then next thing you know, you're following Indiana Jones, and he's getting into a firefight with like the Hun or whatever.
Sure.
And he's like pinned down from all the crossfire, and then the Rocketeer shows up, picks him up, they fly away, all's well that ends well.
That sounds great. Does he ever at any point pick up Indiana Jones, and then does Indiana Jones whip attached to something, swing and kick somebody while being carried by the Rocketeer?
Ooh, that would be good. The closest this gets to that is that when the Rocketeer grabs him and they fly away, it points out that Indiana Jones has to hold on to his fedora to keep it from flying off.
Is that a fedora? I feel the fedora is the wrong.
I don't believe it is, but this person 100% thinks that it is.
I mean, maybe in Rocketeer Indiana Jones world, he doesn't wear that iconic leather adventurer hat. It's a fedora. I don't know. The times are slightly different.
Could be. It's funny. There's a little note where Indiana Jones thinks to himself, like, you know, it's not worth it. But
I'm sorry, that was funny. I'll just believe you. That wasn't worth it.
It isn't. Whatever I was going with that isn't. So there's another one of these where it's basically Captain America, Indiana Jones crossover, which same Joe Johnston connection.
Great.
But it's just Captain America walking around the Smithsonian at, I think, the beginning of Winter Soldier is when he's doing that in the movies.
Yes, where he kind of seeing the like exhibit of the 30s or 40s when he was alive. Like,
yes, yeah,
gotcha.
Which is pretty weird. But yeah, he walks over and he sees this display that has. Wait, no. Okay, so this person calls it a fedora too.
Is it the same person?
I don't know.
Wait, am I just wrong? Does Indiana Jones wear a fedora? Is that technically a fedora? Because I have a very different mental picture of what a fedora is. And Indiana Jones does not wear that I have in my mind.
Can you look that up real quick?
I'm going to look that up. You keep telling your story. I'm going to confirm whether or not that's a fedora. Go on.
So, yeah, he walks up to the display case and it says fedora, jacket, bullwhip, and satchel used in the movies. And it's like it's all of Indiana Jones's gear in the display case. And then Steve Rogers looks at it and says, used in the movies, my ass.
Nice.
That's the end of the story.
What?
That's it. There's no story. It's just him in the Smithsonian. He sees the gear and it's like, oh, like he actually fought during World War II. Unless it is the same writer, and this is just a sequel to the first thing, which would make sense.
Maybe it is, but I do have some devastating news for you.
Oh, man.
It's a fedora. Tones Jones favored a high-crowned, wide-brimmed, sable fedora through many of his adventures, sometimes risking his own life to make sure he retained it. He also wore gray fedoras, but the sable hat he was given as a teenager was the one he had the most sentiment for. Under Fedora, Indiana Jones Wiki. I can never look at that character the same again. He's been wearing a fedora this whole time? Because that's a cool hat. Does that mean I like fedoras?
And I don't even, I've been using fedora all wrong.
I mean,
what's the name of the
fedoras?
stuff that they cut off of the tip of your penis?
A fedora, maybe. I don't know what I believe anymore.
I don't know.
It just removed my penis's fedora at birth. And now it'll never be an archaeologist.
Well, that's embarrassing for both of us, but I think a good time just to power ahead to our next story.
Sounds reasonable. See, my life is already being changed by this project.
Mm-hmm. So that's one story, which is two characters that seemingly exist in the same universe, and you want them to interact together, like your airbending guy and Colonel Coleridge. But
God. You mother.
So, this one is just two ideas that two things that don't necessarily make sense together, but do kind of create an interesting idea. Okay, so this is a crossover between something called High School of the Dead which is a manga about high school students in a zombie apocalypse, I guess,
Cool.
but also was later turned into an anime.
I mean, potentially cool. I mean, depends on.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about it. The only thing I know about it that's cool is that in this story, it's crossed over with a little movie called Crank.
Oh, that I know, and that is cool.
Okay, so this is called Crank of the Dead, Chapter 1, 28 Hours Later.
Ooh.
So I think this might also be like a Danny Boyle.
You're like 28 days later, but instead it's 28. Oh, that's funny.
It's just funny. 28 hours.
Because it's zombies. Okay. All right. I'm with you,
it's
author.
Just been
Who wrote
a day
this?
and 4 hours. Twarner?
Twarner. Good reference, Twarner. Proceed.
Basically, the first part starts with a newscast, and I'm going to paraphrase it here and just say that, like, Japan and America have zombie outbreaks, and then they drop a bunch of bombs that are zombie antidotes on a bunch of them, like America does, and they're okay. But Japan accidentally sets off bombs that are more of the virus and not the antidote.
Oh, Japan. Get your shit together.
I know.
You'd think you would have learned by now.
So that's that. They make even more zombies. So Japan's completely taken over. And that's just a paragraph that is a news broadcast called The World News with Greg.
Thanks, Greg. Good exposition.
This is where the story starts. Chev Chilios, Jason Statham's character from Crank.
Sweet.
Chev Chilios, after falling from the sky and being set on fire, was in a hospital in Japan. Passed out after being thrown on a beach by a tidal wave. He woke up in the hospital 28 hours later to find the room quiet, birds outside singing, and a fast zombie biting his hand.
Oh, I like that they specify fast zombie, because when you say zombie, you are assuming they're the slow kind, not the Danny Boyle 28 days later kind.
Yeah, totally.
And also that intro to Chev Chelios is this name?
Chev. Like
Chelios.
Chevy Chase.
Yeah. Is exactly the kind of stuff that happens to him in Crank. So.
Oh, no, totally. So his first thought is, why can't I wake up normally? Because every time he wakes up, some shit's going down.
He's either like missing a heart or...
he's got the Beijing cocktail in him.
Yeah, exactly.
So he punched the zombie out the window, which caused a bunch of other zombies to attack him. And he basically just runs around and punches zombies in the face until he comes across the crew from High School of the Dead who are in a helicopter, and they airlift him out of there. It's a short story, and again, this is chapter 1. There aren't any other chapters that I could find, but I thought it was more interesting as a good end to the Crank trilogy, where instead of the Beijing cocktail or having his heart replaced with an electric arc that needs to be constantly charged, he is immediately bitten by a zombie and then has to get to the cure before he turns into a full-blown zombie.
Oh.
Because that's how this is. That's how the story is pitched, right?
Yeah. That's a good setup for a Crank 3. That's a that's a good pitch.
That'd be great.
Because it would be super fun to see a Crank film in a zombie universe where you can use all the same ridiculous stuff you do in Crank and zombies. That's
right.
fun.
And Crank is so ridiculous that there's like nothing about the canon that prohibits it from being a zombie movie as well, right?
No,
they can go anywhere they want with those films.
Yeah, because they're just batshit crazy. So that's a good pitch, Twarner.
Yeah, totally. Thanks, Twarner.
Wait, this may not even be Oh no, because it's crossing over with the that High School of the Damned.
That high school thing and 28 Days Later.
See, what you should do, Twarner, if you're listening, and I know you are, so stop pretending like you're not Twarner. You just need to make that into an actual movie pitch, send it to whoever directed Crank, and you're going to be like a Slumdog Millionaire, dog. The movie Slumdog Millionaire, like where you are very fortunate and get out of a bad situation. And
wasn't that also directed by Danny Boyle?
Yeah, that was coincidence, though. I can't take credit for that.
Moving on. Get your script to Neveldine and Taylor, but we're moving on.
Great.
Okay, so moving on, those are two like types of stories. Like one that makes sense to put characters together. Then there's one that is sort of like there's a good idea nested in there, but they didn't really do anything with it. I feel like that happens a lot. And then there's this type of story that we come across a lot that's like, I don't even know what the fuck's going on here.
Okay. I'm excited.
I'm just going to read the first line. It was 1944 in Germany, and Oskar Schindler was working in a factory like he did all day long in the factory where he worked.
Oh, no.
He was rich and he was clever, and people liked Oskar because he was a nice guy who was good at video games and maths.
Oh, no.
I pared this thing down, but I'm just mostly going to quote this from here on out so you can see what we're dealing with here.
All right. Okay.
Then one day, the Nazis came to town and they started causing trouble by killing people and marching up and down the streets and eating people's cakes.
Oh, that's an interesting take on Nazism. Go on.
It's a bit reductive, I would say.
Yeah, I feel like you're omitting a few parts of the history, but go on. He also played video games.
Yeah,
Who
sure.
am I to judge?
Who are you to judge? One day, a Nazi turned up at Oscar's factory. Hello, individual. Do you have any Jews here? Schindler shook his head. No, I don't have any Jews. Okay, said the Nazi, and he ate all of Schindler's cake and left.
Okay. I was waiting for the cake to come back in. I was not disappointed.
Fuck, said Schindler. I have a bad feeling about what will happen. We must hide the Jews. I know what to do, said Schindler's assistant gravely. What, said Schindler. Don't worry about it. And he left.
Those cheeky assistants in Nazi-occupied Schindler Town.
It describes the assistant as bespectacled, so I'm assuming that's Ben Kingsley's character.
Yeah, I think so. It's a fair assessment.
Yeah, although if I'm not mistaken, he was Schindler's accountant. I can't remember. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ben Kingsley comes back with a bunch of equipment. Oskar Schindler asks what it is. It's a portal dimension beam, his assistant explained. Awesome, said Schindler. Oskar Schindler. Oskar Schindler said awesome.
Oskar Schindler said awesome.
Awesome Schindler.
Okay, that is awesome. I can't argue with that.
Yeah, just bear with me, man.
All right.
Okay, his assistant's like, with this beam, we can open a portal in the space-time continuum. Then maybe some guy from another universe will come over and help us kick some Nazi butt. Yes, said Schindler, and he smiled, and they both high-fived. It was a long shot, but it was also an awesome plan.
I mean, that is a long shot. I mean, if I was thinking I have a portal dimension opener, and I'm just banking that a badass is going to come through and help me kick Nazi butt, I feel like I haven't really thought through all the possibilities here. But this is me. Again, I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, you will be surprised at in which ways their faith is rewarded.
Okay, I'm excited. And proud of them for going out on a limb.
Yeah, taking a chance.
Yeah.
So he opens the portal. Schindler's like, what's up with that? Ben Kingsley's like, it's a really cool universe of hope and adventure. So suddenly a portal opened, which was red and blue and yellow, and then suddenly a gloved hand came out of the portal before a big blue hedgehog also fell out. The blue hedgehog gave a thumbs up and grinned. I'm Sonic. Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh my God. I
want hot dogs.
I would never have guessed.
They walked into the kitchen and Schindler and Schindler's assistant made Sonic a big hot dog. Then he ate it and demanded more, so they made him more hot dogs with extra mustard. He ate them all in seconds and demanded more, so they made him more with more mustard, for which he ate.
I mean, he sounded a little bit like a Nazi coming in and eating all the cakes, except instead of cakes, it's hot dogs. I'm not trying to throw you under the bus here, Sonic, but you haven't helped much at this point.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay.
Whoa, slow down there, champ, said Schindler, laughing. Leave some hot dogs for the rest of us to eat hot dogs. Yummoo, said Sonic. So tell me about these Nazis. Like I said, they're bad men. They're run by a man named Hitler, and he hates everyone, and he's killing lots of people. Hitler is so lame. Sounds like someone else I know, said Sonic. Who's that, said Schindler. Dr. Robotnik, said Sonic.
I mean, they both have weird facial hair, so I'm into it.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Who's he, said Schindler's assistant. My greatest nemesis, said Sonic. He's a big fat who flies around and builds machines that turns animals into robot fish. He is crime. Doesn't sound as bad as Hitler, though, says Schindler. Let's agree to disagree, says Sonic. Oh my god.
Oh my god. Oh. Okay.
Then it says, Schindler's assistant went home to bed. We will not see him again in this story.
All right. Well, it's nice of him to be upfront about that.
Thanks for the heads up. After more hot dogs, Sonic stood up and he said, all right, I'd like to go home now. They have a brief argument about him getting home. And then Oscar Schindler, from the Academy Award-winning film Schindler's List.
Played by Liam Neeson.
About one of the worst atrocities in human history.
Based on a true story, mind you. Oscar Schindler is a real guy. So, like, even more messed up.
So that same Oscar Schindler says, why don't you stay here with me in my factory and help me save the Jews from the Nazis? With you on our side, we could totally beat the Nazis and Hitler, and then we could become best friends. No, said Sonic.
No? It's just no.
He says no. Schindler thought for a moment, how about if I gave you some hot dogs? Sonic thought for a moment, and then he stretched out his hand, and then Schindler took it, and Sonic said, deal, and they shook hands. Sonic, old pal, said Schindler, I've got a feeling that today is going to be a brand new day. You're right, old friend, said Sonic. It's time to spice up this party. But first things first, get some paper. Schindler looked surprised. Why, Sonic? Because, Sonic said as he put on a pair of sunglasses, I think it's time we made a list.
Oh.
The end.
Oh my god. Oh god.
First of all, I'm sorry.
I'm so sad that that exists.
Second of all, I am shocked at the amount of Sonic the Hedgehog fan fiction I've come across.
Well, is it all hot dog centric?
I don't know.
And very casual about very real atrocities?
I hope not. There's tons of it. Inexplicably. Sonic's not a thing anymore, right?
No, and not like a well-drawn, like a well-thought-out character that lends itself to great depth. He's a hedgehog that runs fast.
He doesn't even run fast in this. He just eats hot dogs and is indifferent.
Yeah. Like, he doesn't even do the one thing that everybody knows about Sonic the Hedgehog, other than if he gets hurt at all, he explodes into rings.
This is what's so perplexing to me. And also, like, I glossed over incredible amount of sort of grammatical and spelling errors because seems as if it was written by somebody who English is not necessarily their first language.
See, what I was expecting to happen was it to, at some point, to turn into sort of an Inglourious Bastards situation.
All the other crossover stuff I could find with Schindler's List was Inglourious Bastards crossover.
Oh, see, there you go.
It was all Inglourious Bastards and Schindler's List, and then Sonic the Hedgehog. Obviously, I went with Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely went with the outlier there.
The thing reads like it was filtered through Google Translate, right? So
gotcha.
Another perplexing layer to this that I don't understand. Like, why? Like, clearly this person's seen at least images from Schindler's List. Like, what?
To know what it's about.
To know there's a factory, to know that...
They at least knew enough to know that they shouldn't do this.
You would think.
They had to know that. They had to know.
It's baffling.
I'm sad that my mind went to this, but I'll go here. I'm a little disappointed that Sonic didn't go around gathering up all of like the Nazi high command at super high speeds just by running over them. And then in the final battle with Hitler, he gets hit and then all of them explode out of him. And so they're all back. And then he has to try to gather them all up, including Hitler, and then is sent back to his dimension, just loaded up with the entire Nazi council that he uses to fight Dr. Robotnik with. That is what I was hoping would happen, but no. Well, see, this is making me nervous too, because it's like, how much of this are we gonna find?
So that
something where you can't not, like, we shouldn't just pretend like you didn't read that and move along, but it's like, that exists.
For what it's worth,
we know this exists in the world.
That was like negligent, like that was,
yeah. Not necessarily malicious.
Not necessarily malicious. And I mean, ignorant, sure, but I don't even want to necessarily go that far because that's I don't know, that has a different connotation to me. But certainly negligent and certainly, I just don't even know what. Well, I don't know what that was. It's crazy.
I mean, it's crazy, and like if you're just in your mind spitballing what is like some of the craziest crossover you could think of, that definitely is, that is one that nobody would expect, myself included. But it's like to not do that. Oh, and this is this is a good question that we can explore as we go forward. Is when you know that it's not going to ever be like mainstream commercializable at all, does that give you stories more and more often that are not intended for a mainstream audience, that would have content that you could never include in something if you're intending it to ever gain any kind of traction with the world? You just had an idea, and so you wrote it down, and you didn't think about like how the world would respond if, someone who's read about the Holocaust reads your story. Like anyone.
Yeah, like any person who's picked up a book. Yeah, I mean, I think that is the thing. I mean, I would go as far as to say with a lot of this, that's part of the emphasis. I mean, it's similar as it is with a lot of internet communities. There's anonymity, and you can say whatever you want, but also you can rope in whatever weird shit you want, man. Like you can pull in any character you want against their will to participate in whatever kind of weirdo agenda you have.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm not saying that that's what all the fan fiction is, but there's seemingly a pretty clear part of it that is specifically about that.
Yeah, that is an interesting corner. So I mean, it's definitely, again, like all the weird sex stuff that we're going to get into. This is a part of it too. It's like using these other these characters that already exist in the world and expose your worldview as the author or your perspective. It's an interesting thing because it doesn't necessarily read like the character, but the character, so the juxtaposition is very jarring.
Mm-hmm. So is the blatant disregard of historical atrocities.
Yeah, man.
It's particularly jarring.
Yeah, was not prepared for that one. So, we are off to the races.
Never mind.
Was you going to make a joke about Sonic racing?
No, I was going to make a joke about the near genocide that took place on Pandora.
Oh my god. Ugh.
I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I didn't bring it up at all.
Yeah. Now we, at least we don't have to to live with that comparison as well, Zach.
Nobody will have to waste any time thinking about it, thanks to my omission. Because I'm a class act.
That was tactful. Well done. All right. Well, yeah. Well, this is, for me at least, this feels like this is a good jumping in point where we're.
I think, yeah.
We're in it now.
We're in it. We're only going to get deeper in it, and I think we're only going to reveal more and more so which one of us is the racist.
Yeah, I think that the fans will be surprised to find that it's both of us.
I'm going to be surprised too, and I'm not looking forward to it.
Yeah, me neither. I don't want to see that part of myself, but it's
not a big fan of that part
happen.
of myself.
Yeah, man. Well, yeah, we're getting into it, and I do want to say just really quick. I don't mean to shit on Sonic the Hedgehog, Oscar Schindler person, because like the same thing that we're trying to approach all of this with is like I want to approach all of this with an open mind. I want to know the creative impulse behind it.
There was something there.
I don't want to just judge.
They felt the need for some reason.
Judge them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to judge you, whoever you are. But
don't mind judging you. But Andrew will play devil's advocate here.
Like whatever worldview thing is being espoused by that, I want to hear it and potentially still disagree with it, but not just, throw stones. So I'm not trying to do that. All right. Let's do this again.
That sounds like a plan.
Well, I guess that's what we got to leave them with. So, good night, Zach.
Good night, Andrew.
It's hard to like riff about it without just being like, "Oh shit, I'm not trying to make fun of Schindler's List 2." That's not my intention.
What was Schindler's List 2 called?
It's Schindler's List 2: The Revenge, Schindler's Piss. So
there it is.
Hello, this is Andrew. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to see more of our stuff, go to fanfiction.show. That has all our episodes, as do most places where you would go for podcasts. You can contact us at xandrew@fanfiction.show, and our Twitter and Instagram handle are both at fanfictionshow. If you wanted to read some of these stories yourself, once again, we had The Terrible Transformation by NelissaTL, My Morty by Dead Man's Toe, Fire Burns and Ice Freezes by Invisible But There, Indiana Jones Meets the Rocketeer by Shockeye7665, It Belongs in a Museum by Captain America, where all the I's are ones and E's are threes, and Crank of the Dead by Twarner, and last but least, Sonic's List by SonicFan9601. Thanks again for listening.